Hi everybody, and welcome back to Kimbo's Comfort Kitchen, and today we are going to show you how to make your own homemade smoked bacon. Now I'm going to show you how to buy the bacon, what to buy, I'm going to tell you how to cure it, and then I'm going to use my little offset smoker that I bought last year. I've just started smoking, so I'm not an expert in smoking by any stretch of the imagination, but I've done one before, and I've just finished this one, and I'm going to tell you it's spectacular. Now if you don't have a smoker, maybe you'll be thinking about getting a smoker, because these little guys, the offsets, are not very expensive. Now you can get pellet smokers, but for me personally, I wanted to know exactly all of the mechanics of how to smoke and learn as I go along. It's a lot more intensive when you use an offset smoker because you have to tend the fire. Pellet smoker, you just put the pellets in and away it goes, but you do get a different type of smoke from it, I have to tell you. I have some friends that have pellet smokers, and for long smokes I think they're pretty cool. But basically, at this point in time, I'm still working with my offset. Hey everybody, I hope you can hear me through my mask, but I'm at one of my favorite butcher, which is Chaffee's on Hastings in Burnaby Heights, here in Vancouver on Burnaby. And I want to introduce you to my favorite guy here in town right now, is Aaron.
Hi,
he
Kimbo.
is awesome. How you doing, bud?
Not too bad, pretty good today.
So you've, I called ahead here, and now you've prepped out a pork belly for me because we're going to do some bacon.
Yes.
I'm going to smoke some bacon at home. So
Yes.
tell me a little about, just a little bit about the piece that you picked for me.
Yeah, this is pretty much half of a whole belly that we have here. It's been boned out. It's an antibiotic-free, hormone-free pork, so really high-quality stuff that's been raised locally here in the Fraser Valley or the Lower Mainland. And I picked this particular side of the belly, and it's the side that's come up closer to the chest or closer to the shoulder. And it's a little bit more uniform, so it'll cook and smoke a little bit more evenly. I also picked it because it has a nice marbling, all throughout. And we'll turn it around here. You can see there's the side, there's the back end of it.
Wow.
And it's just an overall really nice piece.
Beautiful.
You really want that when you're smoking to have, of course, fat content to keep it juicy.
I can hardly wait to get that on the smoker.
Yeah, and you can see we've got some beautiful rind and skin right there too. You know, you can get that crispy, or even smoke that and then use it for a cassoulet.
There you go.
Look at that, use everything.
I will. Thank you very much, Aaron.
No problem, Kimbo.
Okay, buddy. And we'll get back to the kitchen.
Sounds good.
So that was my friend Aaron at Chaffee's in Burnaby Heights in Vancouver, in Burnaby Heights. He's an amazing butcher, and this is key for a lot of stuff, especially if you're going to start doing smoking. You want to go and find yourself somebody that you know and you trust. And I can't say enough good things about both Aaron and Chaffee's. If there are cuts of meat that you want, you can walk in anytime. They know what they're doing. They're experienced. They've been around the block. They're awesome. So that's my plug for Aaron and for Chaffee's. So next we're going to go in and I'm going to show you our step once I'm getting prepped for curing. Okay, let's go. Well, let's get started with making the bacon. So the pork belly that I got from Aaron, at the last minute, I decided that I'm going to peel away the skin, and I'll use that later. But the reason I'm pulling that away is because when I'm doing the cure for the next 11 days, maybe 12, I'm not sure yet, wait and see, I want to have my curing agent, the salts, basically on both sides. So I keep this mix, and I put Danger on there because I use a curing salt, which is the pink salt or Prague salt, which is pretty dangerous if you ingest it just by itself. And I keep that separate so that there's no mistake. Now I've already pre-mixed all of this, which is salt, paprika, pepper, white sugar, and the Prague powder. So I'm going to put that in, and I'm going to rub this in very liberally on both sides. You know, it's amazing. It's really not a complicated process to make phenomenal bacon at home if you've got a smoker. The actual curing aspect of it is, well, it's centuries old. and pretty simple. So I'm gonna rub this in, and once I've got that on rubbed in well, I'm going to put this into a Ziploc bag. I know there's other recipes saying, you know, you put it into a press and this and that and everything else, but I've done it this way before, and it still reminds me of the bacon that my great uncles used to make in Denmark. And we all know that Danish bacon is pretty decent, especially back then. So just make sure you get it well coated like that. This is all going to get rinsed off in the end anyway, but this is for the curing action for the next 10 to 11 days. So basically I'm going to put this into a Ziploc bag, and I'm going to then put it in the fridge on the lowest shelf on my fridge in the Ziploc bag, and I'm going to flip it once every day. Well, we are 11 days in, and I have been flipping this in the fridge every day for those 11 days. And I'm taking this out, and I'm going to wash all the salt and the pepper and the seasonings and everything else off of that, and as soon as I've done that, we'll be right back. Okay, so I have washed the brine, the salt, pepper, all the seasonings, all of that off. I'm going to dry this off, and once this is patted dry, I am going to let this sit in the fridge overnight, just to let everything else evaporate and dry it out before we smoke it. Okay, and we will be back. Well, here's my, what I call easy bake offset smoker. Very different than a pellet smoker. I started off with my Luftleiter, which I highly recommend for lighting charcoal. So I'm going to start off with the charcoal. Once that gets going, then I'll be adding my hickory wood to it and get it up to temp. And once it's up to temp and it stops smoking so much, then I'm going to put in my bacon, or my belly, my pork belly, my big fat pork belly. Be back in a sec. So I've got the charcoal going, and I'm going to spread that out now. And I'm going to put some of the hickory on here. And then I'm going to line up some larger pieces inside to warm up. And I'm just going to close that for now, and we'll be back. All right, so after many hours of tending the fire, this is what I've got. Now, I know it looks kind of dark. The internal temp is about 140. They say 145, but I'm going to when I let it rest, it's probably going to increase. And I'm going to wipe off some of the soot. But I think it's going to be pretty freaking amazing. Like I said, I'm not a professional smoker, but last time I did this, it came out quite well. This is 4 hours. And the temp did vary quite a bit. It went, because you're dealing with an offset, it's not a pellet smoker. This is what I'm left with now. And a lot of ashes. But it went everywhere, all over the map, from 250 to 150, and half the fun is tending the fire as opposed to a pellet smoker. So I'm going to bring this inside and wipe it down, and then I'm going to let it rest for a couple hours before I put it in the fridge. So I've let this rest for an hour. Still a bit warm, but it's good enough now. I'm going to wrap this tightly in saran and put this in the fridge and let it rest for a day. And then tomorrow I am going to cut into this beauty and we're going to fry this up and see what kind of bacon it really looks like. I have to say I love the bark on this, but we'll see. So I've had this in the fridge overnight, and I double wrap this in cellophane. And if I'm going to cut this, I want to cut it while it's cold because it's firmer. And this is what we've got. Boy, it smells nice. So let's cut into this. Now I'm going to make an extra thick cut here on the end, so we can see what we've got here. And I'm going to trim this end off just to square it off. And that's the section I'm going to be cutting that way as opposed to that way. I want all of this because I like the marbling. This I'm going to chop into cubes, set aside and use that for something else. But let's take a look. Wow. Those are nice, thick cuts. My wife wants to see what's going on here. Hey Linda, what do you think?
That looks awesome.
Okay. So I'm going to cut this into pieces. I'm going to cut some of this into slices. I'm going to leave some of it in big thick slabs because I'm going to make cubes, and I'm going to make lardons out of it as well, depending on what my use is going to be. But I'm going to cut about half of this into slices, and I'm going to fry this up, and I'll come back. So I've taken the pieces that I've cut. Those are the ends that I've got. I'm going to use these ends tomorrow to make a breakfast hash and cut those into big chunks. And this I'm going to put in the oven, which I've got the oven set at 400 degrees right now. And I'm going to use these slices to make an amazing bacon sandwich. Bacon, cheese, tomato, mayo, whatever. Anyway, I'll show you the secret in the next video on that. But right now I just want to cook these up and see what they taste like. So 400 degrees for about 15 minutes. So the moment of truth, I put the bacon and I put it on a rack, as you saw. I think that's probably the best way to cook bacon. You can do it in a frying pan, of course. But for me personally, putting it on a rack and baking it in the oven is way better. The excess fat drains away. But having said that, now this is the moment of truth. This is the bacon that I've been looking forward to. Wow. This reminds me of the bacon that my great uncle used to make in Ireland. He was a butcher, did his own smoking. This is far beyond anything you get in the store. Not to mention the fact you get some pleasure out of making it yourself. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this episode, and I'm going to take those pieces of bacon that you saw just now, and I'm going to make another episode and do an amazing bacon sandwich. I can't really call it a BLT, but you'll see why. Alright, so take care. If you like this, subscribe if you haven't already, and I appreciate your support. Ciao.